2 lanes. Railroad had to be up to 4 lanes. So we're digging holes everywhere, putting things together. Next. You can see us pouring essentially the flex zone here on the lower left. You can see the center where we've dug out the street on First Street. You can see the area that will become the park there at Livermore and First Street. Next. And what else do we do? Economic incentive programs help people essentially do tables, chairs, flex zone and sidewalk improvements, essentially facade improvements there. So, you know, one of the things that we did was use psychological trickery, okay? So when we were done, we knew that there wouldn't instantly be more customers in downtown, but we needed to fool people into thinking there were. So we're social animals, whether you like it or not. If you're driving through an area and you don't see any other human beings, you either say A, this area is dead, or B, if it's after dark, you say it's not safe. And so you are not interested in stopping. So we knew there was limited activity in downtown going on. It was hidden back in buildings. So we wanted to take those limited number of people who were dining and shopping and getting them out on the sidewalk. So an incentive program to get people out in the parkway, they didn't need that space. The restaurants were a quarter full. Okay, so it wasn't that. We wanted that quarter people out on display. And sure enough, what that did, as soon as the street opened, the lights came back on, essentially, and people were on display, way more people came down. First, to see what it looked like, and second, like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun, we'll eat outside. So part of that was taking what we had and making it even better. All right, moving on. Commercial design guidelines is sort of how we made sure that things were going to happen. On the left-hand side there, you see what we're trying to do. Windows shall be designed in keeping with the historic character of the town. We had standards. Those are things you absolutely have to do. A number of those things. So these were essentially standards that could be enforced by anybody. You know exactly what they are. Now, for residential development in most areas, to actually have things that you can impose, you have to have objective standards. We also had guidelines here, which were a little softer requirements. But these things are talking about how the windows are proportioned. One of the things that screams to your mind, this is old, is when windows are vertical. They've been vertical since the beginning of time because you didn't have materials that were strong enough to go across the top of the windows and support upper stories. So when you see a set of vertical windows, your mind says, that's an old building. Whether it's old or not, your head thinks it's old. Okay? So that's written into the standards here. So moving on. Then you have a rendering like this. This is Mike Madden's building. And there you have the finished building. Those standards are what helped us from the transition of the idea to the plan to the completed object. Next. On the residential side, people were worried about 2- and 3-story buildings being giant, ugly, square boxes. So a lot of work was put into how things are massed. In other words, how those large, flat planes are broken up into other things. And these requirements here, you can't read them, but trust me, essentially are sort of saying, hey, how you break that up makes it look like a collection of individual buildings or individual homes rather than one giant chunk of apartment complex. It's a big empty box. So you'll see essentially those illustrations there on the next slide. We'll see we had a lot of opportunity site, the old shell building down there. You see the buildings at various spots. And you'll see that the buildings that then got built essentially used those techniques to break those big boxes into smaller units that mimicked the units that were inside. Next. Legacy Partners used a different architectural style, but essentially, again, many of the same things that were laid out in those standards and requirements. Next. Eden Housing. This is actually an ad that was in the Independent. It was actually showing what could happen if both of those projects got approved. How the people who drove through the middle of that would not be able to see the sun. The canyon would be so deep between, and we actually thought it was a gorgeous picture. And so we used it in our promotional items as sort of saying, gosh, look what happens if we redevelop both of those sites there. So essentially, the Eden Housing on the left and the Legacy Partners on the right are both, gasp, 4-story buildings. One's built, and one's closer than we've ever been. Moving on. Easing Housing will be 130 units. It'll be workforce housing, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, two buildings around the park. Next. There's the park, which will essentially connect right up to, if you've been to, how many have been to Stockman's Park? Yeah, it'll be the continuation of that green space all the way through. You can see legacy in the background of that slide there. Next. All right, so here you're looking at essentially Stockman's Park and the surrounding areas. Next. You see our water features in downtown. Next. You see our water ball. That was our former and current mayor's favorite item. He took the idea of a water ball that you'd have in your backyard and said, no, but bigger. No, bigger than that. No, huge. So it's a huge water ball that has interesting facts written on it. How many of you have read some of the facts on there? You cannot believe how many times we had the facts fact-checked, then we had the facts checked, fact-checked, then we had the spelling fact-checked, then we had the placement fact-checked, because we figured once we carve it into a granite ball, which is 10 tons, it will be hard to fix. Yes. And we actually, no one has come to us with a library-esque mural kind of a thing where we spelled stuff wrong. Man, this thing, I think there was a department of fact-checking on this one. But anyway, it's a wonderful ball. But we did have to put up a sign which says, don't climb on the ball. Don't ride the ball. Don't place your child on the ball. Don't place your animal on the ball. It's things that's like, didn't your mama teach you nothing? I mean, do we have to put up a sign? We did have to put up a sign. So if you go down there, look for the sign. Yes, it's for stupid people. All right, next. All right, other implementing ordinances. It wasn't just one thing. There were lots of things. The flex zone, which essentially allows adjacent restaurants to use a portion of the parking area for a very low license fee. Gets people out there, they're more visible, essentially they encourage more people. Weirdly, being busy encourages people to come down and make it more busy. Have any of you been to Stone Ridge lately? Yeah, well, first of all, no, that's their problem. And second of all, there's not very many people in there and it gives you the willies. It's like, this isn't right, something's wrong. Your psychological sort of says, this is not what's supposed to be here. So being busy is essential. So being successful is essential to be successful. Okay? Write that one down. Think about it for a moment. Next. Downtown Revitalization Credit Fee, Open Space in Lieu program that allowed essentially the requirements to be done off-site for little tiny projects that help. Parking in lieu fee credit, that's an amazing thing. RDA funded some parking spaces. Next. What did we do? Lots of things. We dealt with parking. We lowered the amount of parking that you needed. We adjusted the standards so that if you went from a shoe store to a restaurant back to a shoe store, you didn't have to essentially build a bunch of parking, which was super expensive on your site. Some of the sites couldn't do that. So we locked in sort of uses that were underperforming because they couldn't get compliance with all the regulations. So these are examples of the kinds of things that we did in parking. We did the same thing on fees. We did the same thing on sewer. So next. We invested a boatload in parking downtown, essentially the I Street garage, the L Street garage, 775 new spaces. L Streets, how many people have parked in the new L Street garage? How many did it just to say they could do it? Yep, that's me, yes, a couple of city folk. Good job, folks. Yes, it's a wonderful thing, and you are right there. Man, we went and parked in there, and then we had breakfast next to the ale house, and we walked like seven steps, which is, really, everybody wants to get fit, and the main thing they want to do is they want to get fit by avoiding walking. They want to park very, 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 very close to where they're going. At a mall, you'll park generally a quarter to a half a mile away. In a downtown, you'll normally park less than a quarter mile away. It's because you can't see your destination. But remember your destination's close, swear to God, and just walk a little more. You'll be better off, and we'll be better off. Next. There's our downtown plan. You can see the parts that are built. Stockman's Park. Madden's buildings are under construction. Oh my gosh, aren't those amazing? They're going to look gorgeous. I can't wait to be on the rooftop deck drinking.
Yes, me too. Yep.
Actually, yes, that last part was the important part on that. You have the L Street garage, which is now completed. You have the I Street garage up in the upper right-hand corner, which is completed. Eden Housing, which is now through its legal process, can actually do their planning and development. So we're looking forward to that happening soon. So lots of that still underway there. Next. All right, we're going to do some before and after pictures here. So I want to stop here a second on the before and after on the right-hand side for First Street there. So First Street, first of all, you can see in the upper hand, you had what's called a wide cone of vision. You can see a lot off to the sides. So typical speed on the roadway was between 35 and 45. That's a typical speed for somebody to do there. Okay, 35 to 45. 35 to 45 is incompatible with high pedestrian activity. Why? Because every 2 years or so, we kill somebody downtown. We generally run over a biker with a truck, or we would run down a pedestrian as they tried to cross the street or made a move that was unpredicted by the... So it was not a great street. In fact, it was the place in the community where we either had serious injuries or deaths every few years. People were worried when we took it down to 2 lanes, and people would back out. Says, every once in a while, somebody's going to bump into somebody's bumper because they backed out wrong. And the answer is, they were right. But we haven't had a serious injury or a death in the past nearly 25 years since we redid this. So we traded, essentially, high-speed pedestrian deaths for low-speed fender benders. It's like, do that all day long. And in fact, relative, we have very few. You know, and the fender benders we did mainly to help JR, because a pedestrian death doesn't help his business, but a fender bender does. JR, yeah, and we really know that, you know, you give back to the community, so the community wanted to give back to you a little bit. So it's what we call a win-win. So other things going on those 2 streets. So you had a wide cone of vision. So the first thing we have to do is teach you as a driver that this is a very dangerous street. What do? We narrow the cone of vision. We put the second row of trees and the row of trellises in there. We add unpredictability. We put diagonal parking where people have to back out of it. Okay? We put stop signs in weird places. Stop signs don't exist on major streets. Who designed this thing? It's being designed as a pedestrian area. We removed the level of service standard in downtown. This is long before the state did this. Everywhere in the city we have a level of standard that says, hey, you got to keep the cars and trucks moving freely. Down here we said, nope, not here. The PEDs are #1 down here. If it takes you a little longer in a car, slow down or go somewhere else. If you're coming to downtown, it'll be fine. So essentially those were big changes that we did, and you can sort of see the impact of that both visually and psychologically. Average speeds in downtown are 15 to 25 miles an hour rather than the 35 to 45 they were. Next. More pictures of before and after. Yeah, look at the upper right. That was just an amazing group of buildings. And even the muffler shop, you know, is quite a difference. Next. Oh, my favorites.
Yes.
Do you remember the travel bug?
Yeah.
So we forget sort of how ugly downtown was. Next. These 2 shots on the right are from almost exactly the same spot. You know, the thing in the upper, so I cheated, yes. So, but it's not freezing cold. This is a shot in late February on the upper right there. It's about like today. The leaves have not come out on the trees yet, but literally, I don't think there's a single human walking outside. Now, of course, this is a late afternoon, and so it's not quite but if we did it at the same time of day, you'd see a lot more activity out there. People at the coffee shops, people wandering around. So there really is just a transformation of that. And of course, this is, remember when the bike race came to downtown? Yeah. Great fun. So that's what they were doing as they turned the corner there. Next. So if you've been to downtown when we've been having street fairs or a random Friday night or activities down there, the transformation has been dramatic. Now this, the upper right, I do love, because it was the fire chief, ex-fire chief when he was a city council member, thought that letting off fireworks in downtown over, you know, historic structures were all made of wood. I thought it's, I think, a little bit like the JR thing. He thought it was good for business. So we didn't ever burn anything down. Although we did find some objects that were very surprising the next morning. It's like, that didn't burn all the way up. It's supposed to burn all the way up before it comes down. So that's why we don't have things in downtown anymore that light off giant incendiary devices there. Next. So how do we do it? We involved the community. We planned it based on an economic study. All of that compression was based on how much can we actually support in downtown. We took uses from the surrounding shopping centers, like the Chestnut Center that went away or the Lucky Center that went away, compressed them down into the core. It made those businesses more effective, and it created a spot for housing where those people fed downtown. You have a lot more people in your downtown all the time because of those things. Clear plan, concentrate on catalyst projects, create programs tailored to our specific needs to help the businesses get their outdoor furniture, help folks do what you want them to do there. Be flexible and allow the plan to evolve over time. Use psychological tricks, we've told you about that. Window door, essentially that's the ability to get you to essentially walk along a fairly interesting spot. You'll walk twice as far if the thing next to you is interesting, okay? So if you ever wonder why we require them to have windows essentially and doors all the time on First Street rather than big blank walls, you turn around and go back the other way if it's a big blank wall. So it's really important on what is going on. So using your psychology to get you what you want. Comprehensive approach. Fees, programs, standards, incentives, the catalyst projects, the actual changes to downtown, all of those are part of it. Invest in public infrastructure, adjust your fees to match the lower mixed-use impact. Folks in downtown who live in downtown walk a lot more. They come down, they have coffee at Pete's, but they don't drive there. They have coffee at Panama, they don't drive there. So it really doesn't behoove us to charge the same amount for traffic impacts when there's a lower impact. Speed matters. Boy, getting things exactly perfect can kill things. So 90% of something's way better than 100% of nothing. Organizing our departments to facilitate coordination, solving problems, don't create, and getting out of our own way. And that had to do with our fees, our standards, our requirements. Somebody wants to do something fantastic. There's probably a rule against it. And so we try to minimize. It's like why great things don't happen. No, trying to minimize those things that were put in to sort of deal with the worst case scenario and adjust them so they really did deal with that occasional worst case, but let lots of other things go through. And maintaining a clear vision. You can see sort of just from that 2002, 2003 period until now, that's more than 20 years. Paul, who's been with us the entire time, he was barely in middle school when we interned as he started. So these things do take a long time. It takes a lot of transmitting this information from one set of folks to the next set of folks so people remember what you're doing. Next. So with that, we'll go on. All right. Paul has it. If people can hang for just a quick minute, Mr. President, can I have just a minute or two for a question?
Of course.
All right, Paul.
Well, first I'd like to say, so I worked for Marc for 20 years, and if you like the downtown, you have Marc to thank for it. Because it was his vision, his drive, his commitment. It's a phenomenal space because of him. Marc, we wanted all these units and all this business, extra offices in the downtown. Right. That didn't come.
Offices wouldn't come.
And we don't have a ton of new residents downtown. How did it become successful? We were supposed to need those things for the economic driver.
Well, the one thing is that we got more housing units than most people count, which is Station Square is there. The units that are out on essentially First Street are there, Passage are there. Essentially Chestnut became units. So we got about 600 units when we were hoping for more like 1,500 or 2,000, because Legacy's another chunk of units, Eden will be another chunk of units. So what really happened is we became a sub-regional draw. Our essentially service area, which was barely Livermore before, is now Tri-Valley. If people are going to come out to go to dinner in the Tri-Valley, we'll get them from Danville, San Ramon, Dublin, Pleasanton, us, Tracy. That's our service area on a typical weekend night. If we have something fun going on, Rotary's going, rodeo is going, I'll stop drinking before presentations. The rodeo, or essentially the Downtown Street Fest, we become a super regional destination where people will come from Fremont, Hayward, and beyond that. So, all right, in the back we had somebody, one. All right, right there, and then to you.
So I was always very happy that we had a flagpole in the middle of downtown. You could orient yourself. Mm-hmm. I was very unhappy when you cut it down. Mm-hmm. But you put a beautiful new one. How tall is that?
So the new flagpole is the height of the original old flagpole. So the old flagpole was 130 feet tall. In the 50s, late 40s, it rotted off. and it was sawed off and placed again. It was 105 or 6 feet tall. So the flagpole most of us remember, because we weren't alive in the 40s, essentially was the original flagpole first moved, because it kept getting run into by cars, and second of all, sawed off and reburied. And so the new flagpole is as tall as the old one originally was. It's 130 feet tall. All right, and right there.
So my question is related to money. How is this paid for in terms of city money, developer fees, other grant programs, and then how much revenue do you estimate it's generated?
We had the redevelopment agency originally there that paid for some of the approved. They paid for a portion of the first parking garage and a portion of some of the improvements downtown. General fund paid for, big round numbers, originally about $4 or $5 million between the original projects that were done there, which was real money, but not off the charts there. Developer fees were relatively modest. They paid for their fair share of sewer, water, storm, all of the rest of the pieces of the puzzle, but not a sort of integral piece of the thing. And then finally, downtown, how do we put this gently, is a loser economically. It was never done. In other words, you want to make money? Go out to the freeway. One of our car dealerships makes more than all of downtown put together net. Now, I'm not talking about gross, because it does gross a good chunk, but to make it look like that all the time is very expensive. That is a very high level of maintenance to it, because you're right there. You're not driving by at 30 miles an hour. You're literally walking past those shrubs. So downtown is not a money maker, but it is incredibly important. It's not a big money loser either. It's almost a push from there. It's sort of like the vineyards and the wineries and all of that. Not money makers, but they're really important to sort of how we think of ourselves. The stuff out on the freeway, that makes money. That pays the bills. The outlets, that makes money. That pays the bills. So anytime you bitch about essentially the traffic out there, that's paying for your cops and your firefighters and your library hours and all the rest of it. That's where the money comes from. When there's congestion, there's usually money. And when there's money, that's paying for your services. Say, thank you for visiting our community next time you get stuck behind somebody at the outlets. Yes.
So Mark, I just wanted to share an experience that I had recently, and that was I grew up and went to high school in Pleasanton, had dinner in downtown with some of my high school friends. One couple, Barb and Pete, live in Palo Alto, one of the most expensive places to live in the Bay Area. And their comment was they spent a couple hours in downtown Livermore before dinner. They were like, downtown Palo Alto is dead. Livermore is hopping. They did a great job.
We love it when rich people say things like that. And come down and spend money. That's just amazing. And so it really does breed off of success, but it's very different. We don't have a lumber yard in downtown anymore. We don't have a haberdashery. All the young planners didn't even know what a haberdashery was. They had to literally, when somebody said they wanted one, they had to go look it up. So anyway, and if you don't know what it is, you can look it up too. All right, last question. We'll wrap up here.
So you mentioned the spelling problem up at the library.
Yes.
Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but there are circles around the ball, and there are elements put in those circles. And those circles are in the wrong circles. The elements are in the wrong circles, corresponding to the periodic chart. Yeah.
Yes.
However, there are more people who know how to spell than understand atomic structure, so you're safe.
Yeah, that's what we were figuring. Yeah, because clearly, getting everything in the right band. And then the other thing is occasionally it's like, it won't fit out here. How about if I put it here? And it's like, who's going to notice? I said, somebody will notice. So now we know who that someone is. All righties. I'll give it back to you, President Pat. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this amazing presentation on downtown Livermore. And I hope your presentation will be archived in the Livermore archives. So, and we have one little gift we'd like to give you. Yes. Our tradition.
Really?
Yes. Special spot that we presented. We'd like to give you this bottle of
Dante Robert, thank you very much. Thank you, President.
So next next week, can everybody see the banner there? We'll be at Del Val Winery, not here.
At 5 o'clock.
At 5 o'clock. Thank you. Don Sweeney. Raffle.
Okay, you want to draw a number? Mary's going to draw a number. Whoever the number is called wins the money, and it's $132 today. Because it's going to be the last one. $132, and a few people left that had bought tickets, so we may have to draw it twice. Go for it. Okay. Okay, the last four numbers are 8653.
8653.
8653. Who got it? Mike Morgan. Okay. Congratulations.
See you next week.